Alright, welcome back. The next thing we want to do here is add additional pieces where we can show things such as land that is raised up or elevated, or maybe we have small floating islands or chunk of land that we have maybe out here in the water. So to do that, you probably guessed it, we're going to head back to our pixel art assets here, and I'm actually going to go over here to this region here, because it's going to be easier for me to work with what I'm going to be doing. And I'm actually going to first start with my marquee selection tool and grab this bottom corner here. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this, and what I want to do is actually go ahead and copy and paste that, because I want to have it on a new layer. And let's go ahead and move that, because again, I wanted to create that separately. You could use Alt if you want, but I wanted to use that separately just so I could have a nice fresh copy to work with. And I'm going to show you why here in just a second. Well, now, what you want to do is line this up so you kind of have one pixel of the dark water guaranteed here along the edge. If you have these like lighter ones, that's okay, but primarily you want to make sure you have this dark pixel here. All right, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to trim this down so that way it's actually going to be restrained to this 32 by 32 box here. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this and hit delete and repeat for the same side over here. And now if we look at this size here, all right, we can see that this, of course, is a little bit more than 16 pixels. It's about 22. So I'm actually just going to zoom this in a little bit more here. And I want to go ahead and make sure that this is 16 by 16 pixels. So I'm going to go down until I hit 16 pixels. So right there is 16. And I'm going to delete that section off. And I'm going to do the same thing for this side. So I'm going to come over here until I have a width of 16. And I'm going to delete that side as well. And what that's going to do is effectively give us this first corner here that we're going to work with. Now, of course, we can, from here, it would be very easy. We can do the same thing, copy this corner, bring it over. But our corners, of course, are identical. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to speed this up just a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and make a copy of this corner here. And let's go ahead and rotate that. That should just be a nice quick flip here for us. And now we, of course, have the bottom part of that island. Look at that. Nice, quick, and easy. So let's now go up to the top corner here. And let's go ahead and select the top corner of this island. Copy that. Oh, I'll make sure I'm on the right layer here. That's very important. Copy that. Move this back down and paste. And it might have put that asset back still up here, so I want to make sure I grab my move tool. There it is. There's the asset I'm looking for. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this in place here. And then this is where it comes in really handy for it to be in its own layer, because I don't want to affect these other layers here. Because if I had just made a copy of it and put it on top of everything here and merge it in, it could affect the underlying merged layers. And we don't want that to happen. So using our rectangular selection tool, let's go ahead and cut off these areas up here. And watch when I hit the delete key, you can see that it only affected the layer that was currently selected. And that's what we want to happen. So again, same thing as what we did before. Now, of course, I might have this over just a little too much here. It looks like I'm actually going to back this up just a little bit because I don't quite have a nice full blue edge here. So something to always check here. So let's just deselect that real quick. Go back to our move tool and actually just move that over just 1 pixel here in our selection. There we go. That looks a little bit nicer. So again, back to our rectangular selection tool. We can just go ahead and crop these 2 regions right off. And again, we want to make sure that this is a 16 pixel wide region because we're trying to cut this in half. So I'm just going to select that, hit delete. And now if I want to fill this area in, if I do the same thing, I'm going to grab that. Now, one thing you'll notice, if I transform this real quick, and this is why I did this, is you will see that we don't quite have a top here. And you might have already figured that out here too. Before I even transform this, is that we didn't create a top to our island. So when we chop that down, even though when I go to flip this into place, you will see that this island doesn't quite have a top to it. So this is actually kind of problematic for us when we are actually doing this. So one of those things you have to kind of keep in mind is when you're working with these, you actually have to, in this case, bring this down to such a level that we can actually see the top of the island here within our map here. So we actually have to bring this down even further than we may have thought we needed to. But from here, it's simply, once we get it into the proper area where we can see at least 1 blue pixel, nice and solid up there, it's very easy to easily come back and refix this so we can make sure we have 16 pixels wide. We can then deselect, use our Alt key with move tool, go ahead and make that copy for us. Oh, looks like we got a little bit there left over that I might have missed, which is okay. We simply can just grab our selection tool, go down here, delete that off. And now we go back to our move tool. We can see it's just that one region, which is what we want. Perfect. So now when I hold down Alt, I can go ahead and make that copy, move that in place, and go ahead and flip it. Oh, helps if I don't have that selection active. I want to flip this selection right here. There we go. And now we have a much nicer looking kind of piece of land here that's sitting out in the middle of the ocean. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these layers here because I want this one nice big asset. I'm just going to go ahead and merge those layers. And let's go ahead and merge down. And so now it is in my merge layer here. So we have this nice kind of visual asset piece here. And we can go ahead and grab our marquee selection tool, select this region that we have just finished. Let's go ahead and copy that. And we go to our pixel art map and paste this in. And I go to my move tool. You can see that now I can move this easily so it can sit, for example, within the middle of my water here. And it doesn't have to necessarily be constrained in the same way these other regions are. So I can easily put this piece of land here, or I could put another piece of land next to it. And of course they could fit within inside these bounding boxes, or they can go outside because again, they're not necessarily constrained to have to be within those zones because of how I have this set up. I'm just going to set that one right there for now and maybe give them a little bit of a buddy here. So I'm just going to make another one. There. And that's a nice good start here. And again, this is all one small island piece here. But what's if we want to do the same thing, but we want to make it for maybe a hill that's sitting up on top of one of these land masses here. And that's not hard to do because we're going to apply pretty much the same kind of principle that we did here, but we're going to do it now for a landmass on top of a hill. So for this next piece, what we're going to do is actually use this piece that we just made because it's going to be identical in appearance, and we're actually just going to go ahead and copy that over here just real quick. And what I want to do is, within that selection, grab my magic wand tool and actually take out these blue regions here. All right. So with this selection, let me just quickly deselect here. And actually, I want to, instead of making that, I want to make it into a whole new layer here. So I'm going to copy and paste that just so that way it's isolated. I'm not actually manipulating the merged map here. That looks good. Magic wand tool, select the blue regions that we have here. So I'm holding down the shift key to grab multiple areas of the blue. And once we've done that, we can hit our delete key to delete that out. If you have a little bit of that kind of fading effect, you might have to check some of your boxes up here. Because again, we want this to be kind of nice and sample. We don't want any tolerance here. So we want this, so when it comes in and grabs this region here, we are going to go ahead and delete this out. So all this blue area, of course, is going away. There we go. That looks pretty nice. The blue is all selected. And from there, it's just a matter of erasing it out. So if we hit the delete key, you can see now we have all that region gone in removed. Looks like I might have missed two small blue regions here, but that's real quick and easy to fix. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the other green that we have up here behind it. But before I do that, let's deselect real quick. And I'm going to use my pencil tool. I actually want to create a border here with this asset. And you'll see why in a second why I'm going to do this. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool. And I'm going to pick a color that's going to stand out pretty nicely here with this edge. And the yellow actually sounds like a pretty good color here to use because, again, it's not the same central color that we have in here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and take this and kind of go along the border of this, just so it's nice and filled in here. All right, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to actually zoom out just a little bit here and go over to my big square, grab my selection tool, select this central square, and let's go ahead and just zoom out just a little bit more so we can work this nice and easy. Hold down the Alt key with my move tool to create a copy of that. And of course, we're on not the correct layer here, so we're on our merge layer. So let's copy and paste that. And so now I can go ahead and move that into the right area. And now you can see, because I put that yellow border here, we now have this very distinct edge here that we can work with. Now, of course, we could break that edge up a little bit if we want, for example. So if I were to go to layer 1 here, which is, of course, my hill, and I were to zoom back in on that, I could, of course, come in here very easily, grab my eyedropper tool, grab some of these other colors, and just to break this up just a little bit, I can add a couple small shading pieces in here, just so it doesn't look like the same monotonous yellow through here, because otherwise it might look a little visually unappealing. Alright, and that makes it look a little nice, but we of course still have this distinct edge here that we can work with. And let's grab our rectangular selection tool. But first, actually, I'm going to merge these layers down, so let's go ahead and merge layers, merge down, there we go, now that's part of the merge. So I can grab these, copy, go back to my pixel art map, paste that in. And you can see that now we can use this to sit pretty much anywhere that we want within our pixel art map. Now you will notice there might be a little bit of visual jarring if we try to put it someplace, for example, that doesn't have quite the same pattern. So if you put it obviously in the center of a piece, it's going to look the best. Versus if you put it on a corner, it may have a little bit more visual jarring effect. If you zoom in here real quick, you can see, of course, there is some differentiation within some of that pattern, which might stand out to you. But it may not be as much of a deal breaker as you might think, simply because of how we have this blending already. Because it's using the same color palette that we had established. Alright, and of course you can put those hills there anywhere you want. I'm just going to go ahead and make one more copy. I'm just going to go ahead and stick one maybe over here on the upper landmass, just so we have one to look at. And let's go ahead and put one more down here. I'm just going to kind of put them right on the edge. And that looks pretty good. So we, of course, now have established a couple more features here to really help our landmass come out. Now, obviously, you could take something like this and create a larger hill on top of this using similar techniques that we have done here. But this should give you a good foundation for anything you need to go forward. But next time, let's go ahead and add our next flare to this. We still have things like trees and buildings that we can look at. So let's do next time a couple trees and just see how we can really help make the landscape pop out a lot more.